Hello, everyone. We're just gathering. Welcome. Uh, just settle in. We'll be as people join. We'll get ready and we'll start in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Joanna, I saw you on the Shinkoku class with Mary Sensei. How did you like that?
Yes, hi Lauren, how are you? It was very good. I haven't done that much here, so it's brand new for me. All the ritual completely. We always do the rolling, but not the complete ritual. It was
Right.
very interesting. I look forward to practice it more.
Yeah, when I first went to Hombu Dojo, all they did was the rowing. But when I went to Shingu Dojo, they did the full thing. And I hope you enjoy it.
Yes, really, it was really special, and also your speech was really inspiring. Really like that. Very
All
good.
right. All right. See you in a few minutes when Sensei comes.
See you. Good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual dojo. Nadeau Sensei will be with us in just a few minutes. It's good to see you all again. We have 34 people who are already here, and I'm sure there'll be more coming. And so please mute your microphones as always. When Sensei calls for interaction and you feel like speaking up, just unmute yourself for the moment. And as always, we'll post information about how you can find these sessions after the fact. They're posted to Zoom by Ken Cron, and he does a really terrific effort keeping them current. They usually are, a Friday class is usually posted by Monday. And if you search on Aikido Nadeau Shihan, you usually will find the latest clippings. They're not necessarily in chronological order because that'd be too much for YouTube to do, but you poke around, you'll find a lot of really interesting sessions. And Ken has posted now, 10, 11 months worth of weekly classes. So there's a lot of content there to look at if you're interested. Also, I'll post on the chat in just a few minutes how you can make a voluntary donation if you're so inclined. They're much appreciated and really help Nadeau Sensei keep going here. And so I think we're just about ready. At 1 minute to go. And we're ready. Okay, so here comes Sensei. And we're ready to go. And Nadeau Sensei, good evening.
Hello. Oh, there you are. Okay. Good evening. Self. The elusive self. How can it be so elusive? It's so constant. It's so here. We think about it, make up stories about it. The here-ness of it. That's where we want to go. The it itself, for lack of words, experiencing itself. We have to be careful of certain words like experience. I can experience my room is semi-cool. But we're talking about a whole different unit here. Okay. Can we go back to the piece of glass? Okay. If we use a piece of glass to represent self, okay. In the beginnings of creation, there was this piece of glass, then there was this creation, all these energies, bing, bang. Within the energies, all the qualities that were there. Then we screwed up. This was not a kick from God or something. We screwed up. We kind of got involved with the torque of it because it spirals, with the torque of it, and we lost our fullness sense of self. So we spun in, got involved with those energies that are twirling in, going from heavier to finer or finer to heavier, whichever way you want to look at it, till we hit a pretty heavy place. And then suddenly we kind of wake up as semi-ape men or something, pretty heavy, okay? The self is still there, but because of the energies, it's sort of shrouded in, it cocooned, kind of like we're in a cocoon, And therefore, it's sort of hard to have the self really perceive because there's so many energies wrapping around here. Okay, it's here, but not at its major level of itself, the universal or creation size, if you would, of itself. Okay, but we have to start someplace. So starting here. Okay. Let's see, Tom, are you out there?
Yes. Hi.
Where are you?
I'm over here, Sensei. Hi.
There you are, Tom.
Hi.
Yeah, I liked what you said last week. Could you go over that story again? You're having a bad situation day. You weren't reacting fantastic with it. Could you start the story again right there? What you did, what happened?
Sure. I'm, in my business, what I do in construction and restoration work, there can be times where there's a lot of deception and, illusion of deception going on. And the other day, last week, there was just so much of it going on. It was in my head, and I was getting very, very small, very, very impacted, and not able really to get out of it. I just was observing myself getting smaller and smaller. And at some point this is not a character that I'm familiar with. I need to get out of this character. There's a larger self that I became aware of that has a toolkit, to ground, to center, to just run energy. And suddenly I'm really looking at things from a larger set of eyes. And I'm able to calm down. I'm in a sense of calm. These things aren't impacting me. It's sort of like the randuri isn't affecting me anymore. And I'm feeling more connected and more harmonious with my truer self and recognizing myself. So,
okay. What I wanted to say here, can I jump in here, Tom?
Absolutely.
What I wanted to say here is, Tom being cool, one, realizing he's being squashed in even tighter, and realizing he had some resources, so he settled a bit. And there was this sense of something talking. Could I say in that way, Tom? Something talking. He said, hey, you have resources. You have the tools to handle this. Okay?
Yes.
So even though he started from a very tight place, he's cool. So in settling a little bit more, giving the voice, and I'm going to call that a little bit of self coming through there. Okay, remember, we're wrapped up, but we all have self. Tom has a sense about self. He's not a first day beginner here. Okay, that's why we get along. And to have that self say something that he heard kind of distinct. Hey, Tom, relax. I'm here, I'm you, and you have the resources to deal with this. Okay? You like my words, Tom? Are they okay?
Yeah, resources it's like a toolkit to me. I've got breathing. I like the up-down work of energy. I like center circle. Sometimes I'll just step off to the side and center and circle and ground and just, okay, let's look at this a little differently.
Yeah, all those good old basics. Yeah.
Basics, yeah.
Yeah. So let's say in that case, a little bit of self was able to show itself to Tom and say, Tom, you know this stuff. Come on. Which time you relax, at which time it's energies, easy with them, whether you're centered circling or up and downing or whatever form you're using. You've got some tools to help you be more balanced so that I self can even express myself, my presence even more. Okay. But even to start to pick that up in the early stages, cool, man. I really like your layout. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, continuing that even though we're kind of in, self is still there. And as we do our basics, settle, I call it square away, easy. Those are energies up and down, and those are energies in and out, out and in. But there's a self here, okay? And at first, the glory of yourself, the wow of yourself doesn't show, but it's there. So even in Tom's being really scrunched in, it started to, hey, I'm here. Listen to me. I know what you need. You need to go over your basics. Oh, that's right. Settle and open, da 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 dee dee dee. Thus seeing the situation, experiencing the situation and himself in a whole different light. The I self starting to show. Okay, now bear with me. I want to continue this pattern. So we'll call on Amy Shipley. Are you out there, Amy?
I am.
Okay, hold it. I want to read where I'm starting from. So in mulling on tonight's class, I happen to go over what's that thing called where you put that message down? What's that
Discord.
thing? Discord. She had mentioned it around Christmas time on Discord. She said, staying grounded, rooted, has allowed me to hear what my heart, parenthesis, spirit, question mark, says it wants for me. Whoa. Now, to me, that's whoa, right on the button for where I want to go tonight. Okay. One, that she was grounded and rooted. She was already settling down doing the basics so that the truer of self that's there can talk clearer, express itself better. And I loved what she did with, oh, this is felt like a message from the heart. But then I'm paraphrasing her, she went, wait a minute, there's something more here. Is that my spirit? Realizing it's more than just a heart thing. I'm not dissing the heart thing. I'm saying if there's a self, it'll use your brain, your heart, your feelings. It'll sort of ooze through there and affect those. But I thought that was really cool for her to catch, oh, it's a heart thing, and then go, man, it's more than that. That's my spirit? I thought that was cool. Now you can jump in. The floor is yours.
Well, I think kind of what was happening there is there was a lot of chaos and lots of things that were happening, especially this whole year, that really forced me to stay grounded. And what I began to notice is kind of the fork in the road. And so there's these two paths that I can go down. And in that decision making, it's like, well, I could tread this normal routine path, or I could take something that's totally different. And I noticed that something inside me got excited about that possibility of doing something different. And I think that it's more of my nature to be something rote and mundane, but different.
So for a lot of us in life, we reach a place where we got two paths. We're not sure what to do. We try to figure it out, but you go back and forth. 1 minute, oh yeah, I'll do that one. Next minute, no, don't do that one, do this one. And a minute later, we're back to that one. But if we settle, in essence, saying to self, hey, you know me well. What should I do here? okay, is how I would word that. Amy, all right with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Which reminded me of when I went through a little bit of that. Before I went to Japan, I'm on the police force. And I'm thinking, I want to do something different. I want to be more me, okay? Police work is not quite me. And yet, in mentioning to my family, I'm thinking about going off to Japan, doing this weird stuff, there was a lot of because my family is working class, and I mean working class. To have a job that it's hard to get fired from, with a retirement and sort of respectability, in those days, a little bit more than now, but sort of respectable, they thought that was insane that I would walk away from such a job to do God knows what Oriental nonsense they never understood. Okay. So there I am with this choice. But I was sitting at that time, my earlier beginnings of meditation, and my I had this more inner sense or self. Self was very clear that Japan and doing what I wanted to do was quite proper. So it was no problem for me to walk away from police work, and in a certain way, my family, in a certain way, to do this because this inner self was so strong and kind of clear.
Sensei, I have a question. Well, it's not really a question, but just kind of an assessment. Like, I've had that similar kind of experience where you make that choice and you follow yourself or your heart or whatever. And there's something about that sense. It's like, that was so right. So right.
Yeah.
And so once that's like that decision point is very difficult, but once you've followed that direction, that it was just feels so right.
Yeah. There's something about a message from self that as you begin to experience that's where we're heading. As you begin to experience that, there's so much less doubt as opposed to, I have to make a decision here. And then you're doubting why you did it and whatever. But once you get this sense of the voice of self guiding you, it's so easy to hang out in that direction, not being negatively self-reflective that I make the right choice back then. It's just so much easier because it has some type of weight, Amy, what word? Some type of weight to it.
Yeah.
Self.
Yeah. And the harmony feels right. Like your harmony with the universe it flows better.
Oh yeah. So I always say in my trip to Japan, what a soft touch. It just click, click, click. Okay. I end up in a great home, a mansion in Tokyo, and everything that went with it, the maids and the cooks and the trips to expensive places. It was from beginning to end, it was a soft touch. It just click, 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 click. Yeah. So yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Amy, before we move on?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So,
Sensei, what I wanted to add to Amy's comment was feeling the synchronicities that come with that clarity. And as you're saying, things start clicking. So things that normally wouldn't harmonize from the self start coming into play and falling into place. That's the synchronicity, I feel, with really recognizing the truer self.
Cool. Yeah, you see the pattern that we use is we settle down and let the energies up and down and out and in, whatever. And we get more balanced or squared away, my phrase. We settle and open, move to a better dimensional level of those energies. Okay. Then the self, after a bit, can begin to show more and more. So if I haven't settled down and balanced out a bit, I wouldn't call on self or think I'm thinking about self, or I have a touch on self, I settle for a bit, do my basics for a while. What's a while? 5 minutes, 15, whatever it takes, but not that first moment. Oh, I'm going to talk to myself. It's going to be nonsense, sure as hell. Basics first, okay? I never called the early part of my sitting, when I had sitting pillows in a meditation room in my house and all that, I never called those first minutes meditation. It was just settling down, letting go of the day's problems. If I was still bitching about the boss being bitchy, I didn't call that meditation. I was still caught up in that. I had to settle and easy. To think about the bitchy boss, I'd have to make an effort to think about him. So I knew I was settling down more. Get through the body itchies and all that. Get past that, clued me in. Starting to get into a finer level of feeling. Someplace around in there, then I'd begin to, I would say now, address the self or be in the presence of self. Then I would call that meditation, but not those earlier 5, 10, whatever minutes it took to get to that level. If it took me half an hour on a bad day, so be it. Okay. And I've given you some examples to double check this. When I was at a good place, referring now to a relationship with a self, a sense of self there. Then I would like play games with it, test it. So I'd go out and get drunk in the Japanese days. It was easy to do. Come home and sit, and I could get to the same place. But because I was coming in drunk, it took me a bit longer to get to that place. But you know what? The place, that level was there. It took me longer. So I chose not to drink or drink so much or drink so often, which is hard to do in Japan in those days. But I sort of preferred this. So I chose to not stray too far away so I could click in faster, fuller, better, and move more and more into the more of it. I call that meditation. Okay. Yeah. So are we okay so far? Everyone hanging in there?
All good, Sensei.
All good. Okay. Self. Okay, I use the word over self to represent a better level of me, self, that I, the lesser level of self, can use for guidance, can use for an aid in my development from self at this level to self at that level, and then again to the next level of self, finer of self, or more original of self. Why? Let's forgot where I was going here. Let's try this. Why are we afraid? We, the Bobby self, Bobby identity self, why are we afraid of self? I think in the human condition, there's a lot of us who are afraid of our self. You don't want to sit still for a moment. Okay. Yes, we know there's energies moving around and stuff, but I'm not talking about those guys now. I'm talking about settling down and getting closer to self to have this guidance. And I think there's a lot of fear. You want to help me with that? What's the fear of self? Why are we afraid of ourselves? Gee whiz. Anybody want to jump in on that? You can open mic this one. Fear of self. By myself. Fear of self. Comments on that?
Sensei, this is.
Go ahead.
Sensei, oh, I put my finger in front of it. Sorry. Sensei, this is VNA.
Yeah.
How about, can I say fear of yourself? Or can I say also not trust yourself? Is it the same?
Okay. Yeah. I have a little package here. His name's Bobby or Robert, or on a good day, Nadeau. It's a good package. Now, to touch self, I have to, in some form, let go of that package, even if it's only momentarily or for an hour or something. I have to let go of that to get a closer relationship with self. So I think you said people are afraid to let go of their package. Okay. And the better the package gets, the more apt some people don't want to let go. They're very successful. They're noted in their field. You want me to let go of that to do this downtime trade in for something that I'm not sure is there? They won't do it. Okay. I think Osensei said something there about it's harder for the higher ranks. They got a lot going. They got their little entourage. They're performing well. I said right about there, very hard for those people to continue the work.
Bob?
So there's a fear. I'm going to lose what I got, and I'm pretty good right now. Somebody?
I've got a question that, well, everybody in your family was giving you the kind of whatever it was negative. Can you say anything about what was going on for you that you ended up staying with your Ichi-Rei instead of being, am I making sense? What can you say anything about?
First, don't use Japanese words at me. Could you find something, whatever Ichi-Rei means, please?
Your guiding star, your true north, your bestowed.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I don't know. It's just as you play with self and play these games I'm trying to introduce, hopefully you'll sense, experience the wisdom, the caring self has for lesser self. It's you trying to have you realize who you really are. So once you start to get a little flavor for that, as Amy tried to say earlier, there's this sense of, oh, okay. And you don't doubt yourself because it wasn't a decision you made up here where 5 minutes later you're doubting yourself or an hour later you're retracting. I don't know, there's just something about it that has so much more longevity and sort of I don't know what to say, a strong sense of itself, where you begin to trust it more and more and more and more. Okay. In Japan, I saw, especially I had a friend, nice guy, loved Aikido. From the West, he's from California, in fact, and he goes to Japan to major in the arts. And he had one bad day, one bad incident. He quit. I couldn't believe it. He loved Aikido. I had conversations with him about how much he loved Aikido and how so happy he was to be there at Hombu Dojo and training. And one bad incident, one bad day, one bad class, he quit. So I said, be careful, Nadeau. So what I used to do was, I wasn't sure how long I was going to stay in Japan. So on a fair day, settle and say, and sort of ask the question, how long should I stay? Okay, and I keep it within reason. I forget if I was using a 3-month pattern or 6-month pattern, or whatever. Let's say 3 months. Am I good for 3 months here? And I get this sense, again, some emanations from self of that's good. Then with that feeling, that, what do you want to call that? From some degree of self, I wouldn't question. If I had a bad day, it was just a bad day. Next day, I'm back at class. I didn't, for that 3 months, wonder about should I go back home now? Because on a good day, meaning I had tapped a bit, I made the decision. And so I never doubted for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, I do it another one. wait till I had a fair day and then sit and and do the same thing. And then it'd be another, we're cool, good, go for it. So did I sort of answer your question? I sort of make that clear? Yeah, you might not know what I'm talking about if you yet, of course, don't have enough experience with self. But that's why we're doing last week's class and tonight's class, to try to facilitate how to settle down, line up, to self, to take care of any major misunderstandings about it that may get in your way. So that's what we're trying to do. Okay.
Yeah, I
Time's
guess.
going by fast. Say what?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just looking at my clock.
Well, I was just going to say that comment that you made a couple weeks back that I reiterated about you saw Osensei step off and do something. And this is like, I feel like this is what you're trying to teach us in terms of getting to a truer, clearer self. And then I guess, if I may, enter the situation. Too much? Sorry.
Well, I'm not sure. I just the phrase "enter the situation." No, don't mind me. I'm a stickler.
No, I appreciate it. I sincerely.
That, as Tom said, get to a better this, and then the synchronicity of the energies usually begins to show. So I don't know if I step into it or just I'm there, of course. In the middle of everything, but there's some synchronicity that often happens, and things just seem to work better, go better. Tom tried to lay that out.
Sensei,
So yeah,
I think you mentioned the fear of self. I don't know if it's actually that I fear myself, but I fear this. I'm a survivalist, right? So it's a matter of survival. So I fear that something about me is going to die.
Yes.
And if
the old death routine, we all have to die along the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
But after you're sitting, you know what? You're still alive. It's not a death, but it sort of says you're going to die here. You sort of have this flavor of, oh shit, I'm dying. But it's not a finish your sitting and you're alive. You can go get a glass of wine if you want, or whatever it is you do.
Yeah, but even you've mentioned, because you're from a working class, I'm from a working class too. And it's like that sense of built in, like you have to work to survive. And if you don't do that kind of work where you're getting a steady paycheck, that's death. So maybe it comes from that. I don't know, that the working class.
Anyway, just for everyone to know, if you bump into death along the way, don't freak. It's also symbolic death. Okay. In my meditations, again, I do a lot of underworld stuff. How many graveyards or graves I bumped into? More than once. Yeah, for a human being to say, oh my God, there's a grave here, you sort of don't want to continue because of what that might mean. But that's why I tell you, easy, settle into a finer dimension, and it's not a death. It's a death of the stupidity of Bobby, to then begin to appreciate Robert or Robert to Nadeau or Da to D. It's a different kind of death. There was some, Noah, maybe you can help me. There was some Catholic saint, I think, who said you die daily. Are you aware of that one?
Yes, Sensei, that was St. Paul.
St. Paul, I think good old St. Paul, you die daily. So I imagine every time he traded in for its truer essence, that he picked it up like a death. And we go, oh, you die every day, because every day I'm trading in for the more of me, or the truth of me, or the reality of me. Thank you, St. Paul. Paul? Yes. Thank you. And Noah, thank you. God, time's going by so fast here. Tija, a quick comment about fear of self, and anything intelligent for the folks? A fear of self? You
Well,
must have seen this with all your students.
we'll see how intelligent. But yes, the aspect of you said some very important things. I want to touch on that and come back to this question about the quote unquote fear of self. You mentioned that the first moments of sitting are not meditation, and I think that is actually brilliant. If I could communicate that to my meditation students who are so compelled to like immediately meditate, that those first moments of unwinding, of letting go, of just settling, that is sometimes called just quiet sitting. You're not generating, you're not trying to be creative. Though those are important moments, and in the process, we often just use connecting with the breath, and it's a wonderful way to settle into your body and let the meditation kind of arise. So I just wanted to start with that.
Let me jump in quickie.
Please.
One of my, just for a short period of time in my meditation thing, when I realized there was, as I began to sit, there were a lot of different thoughts, and I would approach them like balloons, and I would go clip, and let that balloon float away. If another one came up, clip, let that one float away. No, we're not going to get involved in that thought balloon, whatever it is. We're going to let it go, let go of it. So I would have a balloon game that I would play at stage in my meditation career. You were going to say now.
Yeah, that sounds great. The other part, I would kind of rephrase it slightly, because in a sense, it's not a fear of self, but it's a fear of letting go of what we think is ourselves to begin with. So that's one level. And often in meditation, as we've done, like the onesies to twosies to threesies, that process of expansion. Yeah, when you do that, you're letting go of an identity, right? So in letting go of the identity, you move into that. What do you call it? You call it the downtime. Yes, the downtime where there's just some space. There's no new connection to the next finer level, and it takes a little bit of courage and some practice. Once you get used to practicing like that, you can realize, oh yeah, I'm in the downtime now. I'm in this space between. So I think that's an important thing to note.
Yeah. And once we playing the 1x, 2x, 3x game, you remember the 1x, as Keisha said, was a character. He had his world, his viewpoint, his sense of things. Okay. He had how his body moved, the tone of his voice. He had all of that. But we played this simple game. We just added steps, but the same game. Now I'd say, okay, let's downtime, which brings us to a finer dimension, and then click, we sort of awaken in this finer dimension, and it's suddenly a 2x2. And all the energies there are a little bit better. So they mix up a better character who sees things a bit clearer, whatever. And it's starting to be not too bad. Not good enough? Downtime. We hit a different level, which is a dimensional game. And from that level, we certain way awake again. You're in a 3x3, and the energies there are vibing at that dimensional level, mixing up a 3x3 character who sees much better, has a better philosophy, much better body movement. So when you've done a few 1x, 2x, 3x's, I'm sort of wondering why you're so afraid, or anyone would be so afraid to move on, when there's a beautiful example. We moved on, 1x, 2x, 3x, and it worked out. Now we have to, but I have to trust. Well, hell, you do that once or twice. From that moment on, I trust the next is going to be better. Okay? I try to tell you, it can't get worse. If you're fairly good, something got worse. It didn't get worse. You're doing something else in there. And we have to figure out what you're doing, because really, click, boom, a sense of, there it is. It's a sense of finer.
Yeah, I think that Tom and Amy and Moon kind of articulated that, said it very well from their own experience. I thought the embodied, we could say the direct understanding of that as a process is important. Often in meditation, people want to go from zero to ultimate, and it doesn't work that way. At least not in my experience of the meditation.
That's because if you, like, say from the get-go, say, okay, I want to talk to my over self. No, you're still so in the first little piece. You got to settle down. It's what we're following here in a certain way is the brain map.
Indeed.
Yeah, and sort of the brain map sort of follows along. Move to a better level before you start to address self that's there. Don't try to do it from, okay, self, where are you? And then you make up some bullshit stuff about what self told you. And it's total bullshit. Because you're not there. You've heard a word, over self. Okay? And you want to be first in the class to, oh yes, my over self told me to screw you over. Or whatever. So yeah, very important. Don't be in a rush here. Be orderly, get to the right place, and then we'll see. We'll see. Okay. So yeah, thank you, Tisha.
Yeah, thanks. That was great.
God, the time is flying tonight.
Robert, this is Gina. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm just a little confused here. When I'm meditating and ask who am I really, I always thought I was asking the energies, like the feminine and masculine, and now you're telling me it's myself. I know I'm not an advanced student here, so.
No, right, I want to bring that up. Perfect timing. Perfect intro for me, Gina. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, we use the energies to help position us better. Energies up and down. If I had more time, I was going to do an up and down energies for a while, and then out and in energies to represent situation for a while. But we don't have enough time, unfortunately. And there are finer dimensions of both of those two great forces. Okay, so whether you call them center and circle, or the great he, she, or the great yin yang, or whatever you want to call them. Okay, two great forces, and here they're pretty heavy. And if we can get into finer levels of them. Okay, dimensional. That's what Susan's been trying to tell you with her work with a patient. There's a physical hurting client in front of her, and she's settled and moves into a better, the easy next dimension, and then she reads them again and begins to see the under of that person's problem. And she continues. She herself touches a better level and then reads them again at that level, where she's beginning to see the before of what their problem is. Okay? And that's why people around her say, how'd you know that? How'd you know to say that? How'd you know to do that? Because she's working at a different level. They're probably still working at the obvious level. Well, their shoulders are screwed up, so apparently let's work the shoulder. And Elaine tried to tell you a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about their neck, but I went, no, the feet. Go to the feet. You see, because normally you'd say they're bitching about the neck. I can see their neck's a little off. Let's go work the neck. But she said, no, there's something else going on. She was already reading that patient. Okay? We're talking about Elaine now. Reading that patient at a different level. And that patient's system, because you're at that level of communication, told Elaine, grab my feet. That's what's throwing me off up here. Okay? And so we try to introduce this idea of going, of dimensional work. Okay, it's what I've always tried to do for our simple approach in the Aikido world. Get them easy at a little better level. Oh, I want to sort of merge with them. Okay, at a little better level. Oh, I want to harmonize with them. Oh, and you're at that level, and your movements are different. Your relationship with uke nage relationship is different. That's basically, I think, all we're trying to do in the early stages of Aikido. Anyway, Gina, did we cover that? Oh yes. Now, so there are energies that inherently want to harmonize. We just give them room to harmonize. As we get a better level, using the stepping stones, the approach patterns with the end, because we're starting pretty heavy. So using our stepping stones, I don't know if that's good, to get to a better level, then we shift our focus, need a word here, to self, okay? And again, don't do that right off the bat, as Tija was saying. Get to a better level where self will want to show itself more and make itself known that it's there, and it'll eventually say something, I've always been here. Where you been? I've been out running around, getting drunk, whatever. But it's a constant. It's always been there. I'm just returning back to myself. So I'm a little piece of glass, returning back to glass, returning back to glass, returning back to glass, okay? Now, when we're working that run, I used to call that an I run, I to self, to finer self. So I just called it an I run, as opposed to energy things. So I think it's important if you keep the energy harmony, the energy hums, the energy, whatever it's doing. Yes, that's right. That's cool. You'll have some experience there. But when we start to tap self, self is not an energy. Self is a separate piece. That's why I'm calling it glass. Okay. And there are energies all over the place, but I'm not interested in the energies right now. I'm on a glass run or an eye run, or I call that meditation. I don't meditate to do a better technique. That would be weird to me. When I meditate in my vernacular, me to me, that's an I run. Who am I really? Can I settle more to sense myself? Can I settle more to hear the advice of myself to a lesser me self, so I can progress to also be a better level of self? So one day I'll be the over self, and then I'll have another over self as a guide on. Gina, did I say that right? That it's a third
hope so.
different piece.
I'll give it a try.
It's just a third different piece.
Have I been off the track all these years?
No, it's been good to do the energy balance harmony stuff. That's not been a wasted time. Okay. But now you're getting to be a big girl. Why have we been doing this? So as we get better balance, it's easier for the self that's there to show. Right?
Okay.
See, I didn't bring up self the first week. We've been at this for 50 weeks or something. I didn't bring up self the first week.
50 years.
Yeah, well, all right, 50 years. Well, you people in Hawaii have a little retardation to you. On the beach too much. Something. Anyway, where the hell are we?
Thank you.
Self is a separate piece. We use the energy to find self. Then as self begins to show its presence, then the other way around happens. And that's what Tom said. A little bit of self there, and then not reciprocity, Tom, what's that word? Harmony thing?
Synchronicities.
No. Synchronicity.
Synchronicity.
A better level of self, and then, whoa, look at that synchronicity with the energies happening. Whoa. So it works. You see, it's a two-way game if you want. better the balance with energies, so that the self that's there at a better dimensional level of balance can begin to show it's there. Okay, it's always been there, but it's been clouded over with these thicker energies. So we're just clearing, we're unwinding, we're opening and settling. Okay, to get to now, self is very important. It's really the important piece. Not that energies aren't, but we need to be distinct. So now when I talk to over self, okay, I'm not talking about the energies. I'm not looking at the energies. You have to learn how to maybe distinguish, hear the voice, sense the presence of self. And don't suddenly jump into how's my body energies doing? How's that situation doing? No, I'm on a self run. Okay. If you going on a self run or suddenly checking out the energies to see the balance, you're going to get confused. It's going to, what's my earlier word? Smudge? It's going to be too smudgy. Even though they're finer dimensions, probably, you're still going to take the energies of finer dimensions and wrap them around this piece of glass. Not as heavy as one by one, but still there. Okay. So, anyway, it's a distinct piece. That's why I tried to come up with something. Okay, it's a piece of glass. Okay, it's clear. And we're just coming back to ourselves. We're returning back to ourselves. Okay. There's probably Noah. What's the story? The prodigal son. Through the years, every time we develop a bit, we bring up the prodigal son story, and here it is again. It's like the prodigal son, the drunken Bobby, that guy returns back as it gets to more and more of self, more original. I'm welcomed. The prodigal son, the parents gave him all the his share of the family riches and whatever. Remember, his brother was pissed off because he said, "Well, I never went out and got drunk. How come he's getting everything?" Once you return back, it's fine. It's yours. Okay, so another way of looking at prodigal son. Don't know if that helped or hindered. Thank you, Bob. Don't need you. Oh, where are we? Okay. Now, one of my people, the Zoomers, one of the Zoomers, didn't like the word over self too much. I think he had the sense, or I had the sense listening, of felt like an overlord or overbearing. It sort of had that sense. Anyway, he said he went with that word over self. So I want to hand it back to you. What would you like to call this that I call over self, as best as you can sense right now? I threw out a couple of funnies for you. Your fairy godmother, your guiding angel, is that the right phrase? Guiding angel? Your guardian angel. Okay. Kind of cute, kind of fun. Just be a tendency to keep them out there separate a bit too much. But just to get the game going, do you have a better word for over self that's friendly and close and caring and self just wants anything lesser of itself to come back to itself? Do you have any name there that would be better?
I call it higher self. This is Amy. Amy from Florida. I call it higher self.
Higher self. Okay. Higher self. The only reason I would myself, if you like it, use it. It's yours. Okay. But for me, talking to other Zoomers, I'm leery of always higher, because from the get-go, we lost our touch on the stuff of creation. We went into the awareness part very heavily and lost a lot of the stuff of creation, which is equal to it. The real meaning of mind body, it's not body, it's the body of stuff of the entire creation. And we sort of lost that. Osensei was cool at sort of bringing that back up as an alive, active thing. I thought he did a good job. He said he could have done the upper form that's well known. But he said there were enough people teaching that, and there was a lot of misunderstandings with that. He purposefully, boom, stayed in being involved here. So if it's good for you, Amy, I'm not taking that away from you. I'm just talking to other people. I'm a little bit leery on certain ways of using higher. We could do a whole 2 other sessions another day on how to do that. See, I came from there. That was my beginning. I was good at it, but a discussion for another time, maybe. I don't want to create too many enemies. Yes.
Sensei, in Vedanta philosophy and Raja Yoga, there is the allegory of the tree with the 2 birds. And there's a larger bird that observes the smaller bird. The smaller bird is eating the fruit of the tree, experiencing life. The larger bird is just observing. So we always wonder which is the more favorable position, to be eating the fruit of life, eating the fruit of the tree, or just sitting and observing. But the observing bird is the larger self, the one who is actually seeing the whole tree at once instead of just the small fruit. But in the end, they're both the same. So I often think of this larger self of mind that's observing, while the smaller self is engaging in life, eating the fruit, spitting out this, doesn't like this, going through all these temptations and aggravations of life. This larger bird just says, hey, just sit back, enjoy the tree, enjoy the experience of just being here. But anyway, that's an allegory that I often like to.
I thought you were going to go into the story of the lesser of 2 weevils. You up on that movie? Anyway, yes. Which I thought was a very funny line. Anyway, oh God, where'd the time go?
Sensei, you have as much time as you'd like.
Well, in a certain way, I know that, but the clock says, okay.
What about
no problem running past 7:30, Sensei.
For you. I don't know about the other people out there. Okay. So how can we have a sense at first of, quote, over self, and find your own word there? So it's as close as I can say, closer to its truer nature. It's you interested in the lesser you that moved out a little bit, but it's still there. It's right there. Right there. It's not, we have to be careful because a lot of us are brought up with an angry God. What do we call that? A God.
Vengeful?
Vengeful.
Yeah, vengeful God or something. Or, bear with me, we're all 14-year-old Catholic boys afraid to masturbate in the bathroom because God is watching. No?
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah.
I thought that was kind of brilliant. Maybe you have to be Catholic. All my Jewish people forget what I said. Anyway, it's not vengeful. In no way is it going to yell at you. Not really. It's you. And this has to return back to yourself, to be more yourself, to eventually a true self, an original self, a heavenly self, which according to Osensei is wow. Okay. That okay, let's take a couple of minutes. Anybody, anything before I double check?
So Sensei, Bob, this is Diana. So the way I'm hearing you use self itself is dimensional. It's
I'm
not
sorry,
just
self itself is what?
Dimensional. It's not like a solid, it's not like
well, as we approach it in a certain way, it's not that self is dimensional. It's a full piece of glass right now, always has been. But the way we're approaching, we can't say, okay, self, I am the fullness of self. I'm still in a Bobby Robert level of piece of glass. So I do a dimensional sense approach to it. But it itself is not really dimensional. Energies are dimensional. But the fullness of the original glass is a constant, never was not itself that way. From the beginning of creation, it was total. Okay, so I might speak in a dimensional sense. I really don't mean it's dimensional.
Okay.
If I said that, okay. Are you all right with that?
I am. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Short on time again. Settling. We could use the brain map. If you're thinking, where are we going? What are we going to do? No, let it go. Settling. As I open my words, we have more room, my words. Whatever the basic energies are doing, in more room, they're trying to balance with each other. And whatever the situation energies are, they're balancing. Easy, easy. I settle. Using the brain map, I sort of as a guide on. Get into more feeling. First, you feel the obvious body. Let's go a little finer than that, if possible. Easy, settle. Finer level of feeling, if you would. Now, really, if you're really doing it, it's going to take a little more time than that. I may at first feel my body getting itchy and energies crawling around and stuff, and I might be stuck there for 5 minutes or something. So I get past that level into a finer sense of feeling, which is not my itchy, crawly skin. Okay, so remember, we have to do fast tonight, time allotted, but on your own, take a little more time, okay? Easy, settling. Sense feeling, whatever that means, sense feeling. Sense. Have an ear for the energies. It sounds like it's softly humming. Something is softly humming. For example, I get a flavor that the energies I'm talking about now are kind of calm, or there's a kind of a calmness sense around. Again, these are energies. This is not the glass self. This is not over self or finer self. Those are energies, but they can sort of give me a guide on for what level I'm at. And there's a certain level where the energies hum a certain way or are in harmony a certain way, whatever. You might smell sweetness. Oh, I'm at the level where I can actually smell sweetness. Those are the energies. Okay. Right. And however long you have to work with that to get to a better, finer level of sensing, where now we focus not on the energies, but on the self that's there. Easy, easy. I'll use the word again tonight, over self, whatever word is comfortable for you. the great glass that's here that loves me and wants to help me and guide me, okay, whatever. Easy. Now, self is interested in self. Don't do an aside, but what number should I play on the lottery? Or which boyfriend should I choose? Or whatever. That's that stuff. This is self to self. Again, a little early, a little fast, but time allotted. You want to make a stab at your over self. Says something to you to help guide you along. Might be something immediate to help guide you along so you can line up better to over self. If I find myself thinking, I go, no, that's that. This is self to self. Easy. Okay, let's open mic for a moment. Anyone want to make a stab on what your over self said to your present self?
I do magic.
But I am not sure what that has to do with me. You do magic, but I'm a poor over here. Can you give me that conversation better? Like, okay, but what does that have to do with you? Does that mean something to you? What's the flavor of it? Almost as if over self, this is not quite right, but flows to you with words and a feeling, wisdom and a sense of things. Close enough.
I have capabilities that I want to share.
Okay. Yes. Welcome. I'm glad you're here because I have things going on in my system as being over self that I want to share with you. I want you to come here and share them with me. That I like. Okay. That gives me a reason to hang out longer and to do a better job of aligning to it, of setting up that. It just offered me a treat. Hey, I'm game for that. So yes, I like that. Thank you, Kenny. Somebody? Over self talking?
Sensei, excuse me. This is Patrick.
Hey.
I was hearing this is a gift to you. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Gift of self. Yeah. I am gifting myself. Remember the prodigal son story? The parents, okay, gave the returning kid an equal share. It's my gift to you. Okay. I've always wanted to give it to you, but you've been off drinking and carousing. But now that you're back, it's yours. It's my gift to you. Okay. And then I'd want to pursue that a bit more. What is the gift at this moment?
For me, there's a sense of energy flowing out and flowing back in. There's a kind of a rhythm of a to and fro rhythm that's very peaceful.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Now, for us to be clear, because I don't want to use the word energy with the glass self. The yin and yang and the he and the she and the whatever, their energy. Osensei uses a different word here. he said to me, it's not energy. He used the word vitality. It has its own vitality. But that's different than the energy. So what are you going to do with that? Just file it away. Okay. If nothing else, by being distinct on the words that way, we won't get confused with, oh, more energy in an energy, bing, 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 bing world. I might get a little schmeary in there, a little confused. I said, no, those are energies. Very nice. They're balancing, doing whatever. But this is self, and it has its own kind of aliveness, something. That Osensei said, it's vital. It has its own vitalness. Yeah. Just so we don't veer off into the energy world and get confused as to who's who. If I said that okay. Somebody? Self.
Yeah, I just heard the one word listen.
Okay, listen. And you as the whatever, you listen. Now you settle and you listen. What are you getting out of that?
It immediately put me into a more receptive, welcoming mode for whatever was to be presented.
Okay, so from listening to a receptivity to the overself. And
Yeah.
something else you said was right, but I forgot what you said. Okay, yeah. So it's not just words. We're going to sit here and write down the words. It's continuing with the experience. If it says listen, you can't go, okay, I know what that word means. You have to shift. What's the word?
Yeah, it immediately shifted me to, I mean, I was hearing vibrations, sound, but being in a receptive mode.
Okay, now, again, let me jump in. I don't want to hear vibration sounds now. I just told you guys. I'm jumping on you here, Steve. I don't want to hear those sounds as anything coming from over self. Those are energy sounds. Over self has its own languaging. Don't confuse the languaging. Okay?
I hear you.
And again, I tried to lay that out a bit better for other folks. Okay, different words, different people, but I just want to get that clarity out here. This piece of glass is not the energy movement. It moves through it and all around it and all of that. If we're going to fine tune here, the piece of glass is glass. Always has been, always will be, da-da-da-da-da-da. Yes, we use the energy harmony to get to a better level so the glass at whatever level can show. And as you get a better sense of self-glass, then we could kick out and say, oh, the body's better, the situation's better. Okay, so better this. And then in reverse, better this, the better that. But I don't want you to get confused and be saying, I'm doing this when you're doing that. I don't want to smudge it. See, it's already been smudged historically. People aren't very clear on who's who. They confuse all kinds of stuff. Okay. Sometimes horribly. They get into a little bit larger space and they say, oh, this is bigger. This must be God. Or it's a little brighter. Oh, it's God. It's just a vibing brighter, people. Energy's vibing better. It's like God, the original or whatever. So people are very historically very confused as to who's who, trying to clarify that. So that's why I jumped on you, sort of. Somebody finishing up here. Self.
Hey, this larger, finer self, however, over self, is becoming accepting of all the lesser selves, the smaller selves, the other selves that are still a part of me. And as it seems to have more acceptance, then it gets larger. It's almost like it's expanding its own acceptance of itself. And the glass is getting clearer and finer. And
that's where Osensei brings up the word magnetism. There's a certain point of self where, let's say, still within creation, there's a magnetism to more original self. It doesn't, maybe I could say, it doesn't like being strung out. It wants to be the original totality itself that's not strung out, where you got a Bobby suffering and a Robert trying to make off like, and a Nadeau who's sort of hanging in there looking good. Yeah, so it all comes back. And that force of coming back, Osensei called a magnetism in there. And again, the word magnetism, as he used it, was just in relation to the self, not the magnetism of the energies. See, again, for clarity, there'll be a certain draw of energies that are magnetic, okay? But when Osensei used that word here, he was talking about self to over self, if you would, or a finer self, an original self. There is a draw. So that tells me that as we get a better sense of over self, it could get easier because of that draw. It should be easier. It's not work where I got to do all this stuff to get there. There's a certain level where, oh, shit, we should follow the pull of it. It should get easier and easier, faster and faster, and better and better. But yeah, I like that sense of all the little ones come back. A quick aside, past lives. This self has been there for all your different lives, if you're into past lives. So if you're interested in your past life, you go through the self who was there when you were an Indian, or there when you were a sailor, or there when you were, all that information is contained within the self. It's been there. So you could sort of tap that to pick up on past lives. Was that too much? Pass on that. Finishing up, anyone? Self, over self to self?
Yep, I just wanted to make a comment that what comes up for me about that is that I will never leave you. I can't leave you because I am you.
Yeah. I've always been here. I've always been you. I know you twiddled into being an idiot, but I'm you. I care about you. I want you to return back to the better of yourself, where you're not an idiot and you don't suffer the pains of being a Bobby. I mean, look at the pain. I mean, do you want to be a Rwandan when they're swinging machetes at you because you're from the wrong tribe, or whoever doing whatever? Dear God, the pain and stuff. So sort of bring them back and get to a better place here. Yeah, that's an aside, I think. Thank you, Chip. God, went by so fast. Again, if you're interested in over self, you have to spend time. So this was just a quick intro, but spend time. Again, don't try to do it the first minute. Oh, I have an idea about over self. Okay, over self. Do your basics. Do your settling. Do your opening. Do your less thinking to more feeling, finer feeling, whatever that means. Past the of the body, all that. Finer sensing, finer sensing, whatever that means to you. Which time you can be aware of the energies there, but just for a reference, oh, it's humming better. That tells me I'm at a better place, because at a heavier place, either I don't hear a hum or it hums kind of, it annoys me. This one is kind of pleasant. It's a guide-on map. Remember, I'm a mapper. So that tells me about what level I'm at. Okay. Then I shift to main line, self to self. I don't continue with my hands hanging on to the energies. Not now. This is a self to self discussion, exchange, sharing, Okay. And then I major in that. I focus on that because I don't want you to confuse that glassy talk with the energy talk. Not now. Not that we finally settle enough to glass. Okay. Later, I'll show you how to zip back and forth. Oh, I don't want to say it that way. Anyway, just bear with that piece. It's kind of, for me, very important. Okay. Ah.
Hi, Sensei. I'll share.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, when you started the discussion about the self, I was also perplexed because I was focused on kind of the physical self and the energy self. And when you mentioned there is the self.
That's not self. That's body at a certain level, finer levels, a finer body. That's not self.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned the self, and that just popped up. I felt like it was just waiting to be acknowledged.
Oh yeah, it's been waiting there a long time. When you make the approach properly, it'll be like, finally, I'm so happy to have you back.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I asked my big question, which I've been having, which is what is my next step? What is the next thing that I'm going to do? And it already knew, like it was very clear. And my brain said, well, what about this? And what about this? And myself said, I don't care, that those are not issues. I think there was a lot of fear in my brain that the self was kind of like, you don't need to worry about that. That's, who cares? And so it's easy to mirror that when I have these thoughts. It's kind of like they don't matter.
Yeah. And again, as you do a better approach job, I would think those thoughts won't be as strong or whatever, because remember our process was, I'm thinking, easy, settle. We'll use feeling as the next road sign, easy, finer level of feeling, easy, sense feeling, whatever that means, sensing, finer level of sensing. And I'm doing it here in a moment, but take whatever. Half an hour, easy. Big deal. Later you get to it really fast, but I don't want to tell people about fast because okay, over self, where are you? And they'll bullshit it. Yeah, it won't really be over self. It'll be this game they're playing here. So yeah, and you'll find not as much that heavy negative stuff kind of comes up because you cleaned out better on your approach. That'll get better. Just that's why we practice. That's why we do it more than once a year. So it gets smoother and clearer and faster.
Yeah, I feel like since that moment, there's been more integration and less of that mental static.
Yeah, and I'm sure as we make a touch on it, like the words, make a touch on it, that in return, it might show itself at odd times, like I'm still here. Can you feel me or sense feel me or something? Or that was a good decision. Did you notice I helped you with that decision? Or I was here when you made that decision or something? Somebody mentioned that to me. I forget, it doesn't matter. Yes, good, thank you. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything going to keep you up all night?
Nothing you can help me with.
And on that note, thank you so much, Sensei. It's been quite provocative. And
okay.
Thank you.
Again, if you have a mind to, if you would play, you got your basics, sitting, whatever, and play with this, focusing in on over self to self, find your own word, okay? As long as you're comfortable with it. But let's try to get to the place where it's easy to realize, to sense experience that it cares about you. Okay? It's not an avenging God. It's you. It knows your style. It's been you since forever. It knows your games. You know, it's like a parent recognizes when an 18-year-old son starts playing games. Oh, he's been doing those games since he's been a baby. They recognize it right away. They got your number, let's say. Your overself knows where you've been and stuff, and knows best how to help you along. Okay? All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you, everyone. And I'll ring the bell and we're out for the evening. Thank you so much, Nadeau Sensei.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sensei.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Sensei.
Yeah, play. And if you have questions, I'll send them to me somehow or t'other, and I'll play with you.
Thank you.
What a class.
Arigato, arigato, domo, domo.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you, Lauren.